Two boys walked through the woods together. Both were about 4 years old. The taller of the two had blonde hair and red eyes. His name was Katsuki Bakugo. The smaller boy had green hair and green eyes. His name was Izuku Midoriya. The green boy walked with his head down, a glazed over look in his eyes. Bakugo had brought his friend out to play, to get his mind off his troubles. Plus, he knew just sitting at home with his mom wasn't going to help. The blonde knew it had only been a few weeks since the news came. The hero knight's son had been killed in a fight with villains in the U.S. He was known for his works as part of the international hero team, the Revengers. In the international hero polls, he ranks number 3, right behind All Might and Star and Stripe. What most didn't know is that his true name was Hisashi Midoriya. His wife and son were Inko Midoriya and Izuku Midoriya. Bakugo remembered when the men from the government came to Izuku's house. The boys had just come back from playing in the park. They had just come up the stairs when the man in the black suit finished telling Mrs. Midoriya the bad news. When Izuku heard the news, he burst into tears. Bakugo's mom had taken the boy over to see the two. Uncharacteristically, Bakugo's mom was very concerned about her friend. Bakugo said nothing but shared the worry about his friend. He managed to talk the moms into letting him take Izuku to the park. It had seemed like a great idea at the time. Now, though, looking at his friend's face, he was at a loss for words. The pair came out of the woods and entered the playground. He had to think of something. But what? Then it hit him. Hey, Izuku, have you gotten your quirk yet? This broke the small boy out of his own mind for a moment. No, not yet. The doctor says it could happen any day now. I hope it is something cool, like yours Kakin. Or, duh. With that, the boy started to cry. Izuku fell to the ground as tears streamed down his face. He was silent as his sad tears streamed down his face. Bakugo walked over to pat his friend on the head. When he did, he yanked his hand away because Izuku was super hot. The spiky-headed youth backed up out of reflex. The air around the Viridian youth started to heat up. His tears turned to steam. Then the boy's body erupted in blue fire. Izuku's eyes glowed bright blue as fire shot off his body into the sky. Bakugo was dumbstruck. He wanted to help but had no idea what to do. His friend was a blazing pillar of fire, like something from an old anime. What is going on? Bakugo turned toward the deep baritone. It was a giant man with red hair and a red beard. He was built like a bodybuilder. He had a serious look on his face. The spiky blonde boy thought he knew this man, but didn't know where from. The young boy ran up to the man and explained the situation in a mixture of panic and concern. Finally, he asked, "Please, sir, save my friend. Fire is my specialty. Little one, stand back." The giant man approached the blazing youth. He recognized him. It was Hisashi and Inko's son, Izuku. His hair changed from a teal green to a dark blue in front of the hero's eyes. That was strange, but more importantly was the massive fire. Several nearby trees had gone up, and the wind was shifting. This could be bad. This needs to end now. You'll also like completed Save from Ruin, Badass Deku / Dadzawa by Alexandrian Ace. Completed Save from Ruin, Badass Deku / 306k, 7.6k. Izuku Midoriya may seem like your average happy boy with a quirk who goes to school with a bright smile on his face. However, his home life is in pieces. Ever since A Academy Romance, Izuku Fanfic by Dabi. A Academy Romance, Izuku Fanfic, 342k, 7.3k. Midoriya Izuku, the smartest student in A Academy and the top successor among the class, has no experience of being in a relationship or falling in love. Uraraka Ochak. Trust me, Katsuki Bakugo X Reader. Discontinued by WMP. Trust me, Katsuki Bakugo X Reader. Discani, 89.5k, 2.1k. As we all know, Katsuki Bakugo is known to have a hot temper, is cocky, and likes to destroy things. Y/N, a kind, quiet, and cheerful girl. They both met when they were No Choice Villain. Deku by Magdalene Baxter. No Choice Villain. Deku, 43.3k, 2.6k. Izuku Midoriya just wanted to be a hero. Unfortunately for him, life was about to get much more complicated. To protect the people he loved the most, Izuku would have to BNHA siblings. The Anxious and Exuberant by Fury Giovanni. BNHA siblings. The Anxious and the Exuberant. 24.6k, 681. My Hero Academia fanfiction following the anime series with my own twists and OC. Hiroko Midoriya is the daughter of Inko and Hisashi Midoriya, aka Izuku's sister. She, BNHA, Izuku Todoroki. What if Izuku is Todoroki? By Lawrencey. BNHA, Izuku Todoroki. What if Izuku is a Todd? 854k, 24.2k. An unfortunate accident caused Izuku Todoroki to separate from his family. After his disappearance, The family only grew colder. Shoto lost his twin and was trained R by Dexon rights. 91.5K, 3K, X, heavy checkmark, Y/N, 22. Izuku, the man shouted with a firm and clear voice. Izuku looked up with panic in his eyes. Uncle Enji, get away. I can't stop. This was bad. He was getting hotter by the moment. His flames reminded Enji of Hisashi's. If his power was the same, then he had an idea. Yes, you can, boy. His tone was adamant with no sense of fear. No, I can't. Please do something. I can tell you're scared. Fire can be dangerous. Endeavor created a fireball in his hand. But if it is controlled, it can help people, even be used to save lives. Be a hero, kid. Put out the fire. The words be a hero awakened a resolve in the boy. That had been what his father was. That is what he wanted to be. Izuku calmed down and wiped his eyes out of reflex, though the tears had evaporated now. He took a deep breath and claimed himself. He felt the fire coming from within him. He tried pushing the fire down, but that made it grow hotter and bigger. Don't push it down, kid. Whatever you're feeling, let it go. Clear your mind and see the fire going out. Izuku tried, but his mind was so stirred up. So many feelings, pain, grief, sadness, anger. All of that was feeding his fire. Endeavor's calm and controlled voice was the only anchor in a storm of emotion, a storm that threatened to pull Izuku under. Then suddenly Izuku found himself in a white space. It seemed endless. The only thing there was a small blue fire. It hovered in front of him. It then took the image of his father. It spoke to him then from unmoving lips. Izuku, my son, you have awakened. As one light goes out, another is lit. The boy was confused now. His dad was dead. He had been to the funeral. How could he be standing in front of him? I know you're confused, son. There is so much I want to tell you, but I don't have the time right now. What I need to tell you is this. I am proud of you, son. The day you were born, I knew a new sun had risen in the world. Now stand up and be the hero you were meant to be. The image of Hisashi reached out to his son. Izuku placed his tiny hand in his father's strong, long fingers. He felt a strange energy pass into him. He then stood up. The white world faded before him. Back in the real world, with Endeavor in front of him and Bakugo behind, Izuku stood, his fire extinguished. The area around him was burned, and several trees were scarred with burn marks. However, all the fire had been put out as well. Enji was no stranger to flame control and creation. It was his main power. However, to extinguish such hot flames so quickly was unheard of, and the boy showed no signs of damage at all. This was just like Hisashi. Bakugo ran up to his friend. He shouted in a voice full of relief. Izuku, are you all right? Endeavor watched the boys interact in an over-exuberant way for a moment, but he knew he needed to get the kid to a doctor. He took out his phone and pulled up Inko's contact info. The kind woman answered the phone and was surprised to hear Endeavor's on the other end. He explained what was going on. Inko got very worried. The flame hero told her to be quick and to bring her husband's medical records. He sent her the address of the closest hospital and told her to meet him there. She agreed and rushed to do as he said. Boys. The two turned to the hero. I have just called Izuku's mother. She is going to meet us at the hospital. The boys had very different reactions. Bakugo was full of bluster. You aren't taking my friend anywhere. He doesn't need a hospital. Izuku then said, It is all right, Kakin. This man is my Uncle Enji. The small boy passed out. Bakugo became very worried. Is he all right? I was afraid of this. Containing a critical like that and so young. What does all that mean? He will be fine, but he needs a doctor right now. Head home and leave him to me, young one. Okay, but he better survive or you'll have to answer to the mighty Bakugo. The punk kid ran off. Enji thought the young boy was strange, but a good friend. Reminded him a lot of himself when he was young. Enji picked up the boy. Fire engulfed his feet, and he blasted off into the air like a rocket. He would have a lot of paperwork to fill out for using his power out of costume, but this was an emergency. After a few minutes, Inko arrived. She panicked as she asked the front desk where her son was. All the tragedy of the past 2 months weighed on the poor woman. She had lost the love of her life, and now something was wrong with her son. If anything happened to him, she would never recover. Just then, Endeavor walked in and saw the woman. Inko. The woman turned to the deep voice. Enji, where's my son? Did you bring the files? The panicked woman handed him the files he asked for. Enji flipped through them and nodded. He turned to the nurse. Get these to Izuku Midoriya's medical team. They need to see this. Now. The small nurse took the file and ran off to do what the big man said. Tell me what happened. Endeavor nodded. He recounted the whole thing to the short woman. He left out no detail except for the change in appearance. He felt the woman needed to absorb the new info slowly. The poor woman walked over and fell into a chair. This is all too much. She took a deep breath. Thank you for saving my son, Enji. The titan of a man sat down next to her. It is my job. I'm a hero. Now that I think about it. What are you doing here? Your agency is located in Tokyo. I took the day off. I was coming to check on you. Me? Yes. Ray asked me to. She was worried. She hadn't heard from you since the funeral. You're right. So how are you? Not good. I have been holding it together for Izuku, but he is gone, Enji. My Hisashi is gone. I don't know how I can go on. Hisashi used to tell me you were the strong one. She looked up at him with tears in her eyes. While it was true, he had the power to defeat villains, you were the one who had to deal with a screaming toddler. You were the one who encouraged him to keep fighting when he felt he had nothing left to give. He fought to make a better world for you and his son. He was a good man, the best man I have ever known. Who knows what kind of person I would be without his friendship? Yes, he was. She smiled at those words. Thank you, Enji. You know you're a pretty good man, too. Thanks, Inko. Just then the doctor came in. He was a short man with a round belly. His hair was in the shape of a hat, though the man had a very kind face. Mrs. Midoriya, I am your son's doctor. He's stable but unresponsive. We believe it is because his quirk manifested. Inko looked over at Enji. This is why you told me to bring his files. Enji nodded. An understanding passed between them. The doctor continued. The file was helpful. It showed the same symptoms as the boy. We administered the same treatment course prescribed, and he stabilized. Thank goodness. If I may ask, whose records are these? Inko took a deep breath. My husband's. The doctor nodded his head. I see that makes sense. You can come see him now if you'd like. Yes. Thank you, doctor. Inko. She turned back to the crimson-bearded man. Yes, Enji. Be ready for the change. Change. He walked up to the woman and bent down to speak in her ear. Her face grew shocked as he spoke. The nurse took Inko to room number 42. She opened the door to reveal Izuku in a hospital gown on an examining table. The doctor was just finishing his tests. Enji had been right. The change was noticeable. Izuku had always taken after her. Now, though, with the blue hair and blue eyes, he looked just like his father. It brought a tear to her eye, but not a sad tear, a happy one. It seemed that a part of Sashi had survived. His son was still here. In that moment, Inko felt a new surge of strength come into her. She thought she might fall apart a minute ago, but now she knew what she had to do. She would raise her son to be a great man, the same kind of man as his father. Mrs. Midoriya, did you hear me? The crazy-haired doctor said. No, what? Excuse me, ma'am. I said that we're going to have to keep monitoring your son until he awakens. His brain waves are strong, so it should be any time. Probably not. What now? My husband told me the first time his powers activated, he was unconscious for a week. It will probably take that long. Could I get a bed, please? I won't leave my son's side. I will set it up. The short man with the hat-shaped hair waddled out of the room. Enji left the hospital after that. He called for his driver to pick him up. The whole way, several thoughts flowed through the hero's mind. The boy's fire was just like Hisashi, but it seemed different, more powerful, and at such a young age. He is going to need help with that. Inko is a strong woman, but she has no idea how to handle a fire quirk like that. An idea came to the serious man, but it would be a huge inconvenience on Ray and the children. He would have to talk it over with his wife. Nothing happened in their home she did not approve of. This was going to be a big something. A short while later, he was back at the Todoroki estate, a large wooden building with a classical Japanese construction. The area around the house was well wooded to maximize privacy. Enji slid open the front door and was greeted by a delicious smell. Ray must be preparing dinner. He walked toward the kitchen and saw that was the case. The woman stood at the sink washing vegetables as several pots bubbled and steamed on the stove nearby. Ray was a woman of average height. Her long white hair hung down her back. She was wearing a simple house dress, nothing to fancy. Still, she was a beautiful sight to Enji. The woman turned around and saw her husband there. She smiled at him with a playful look in her big brown eyes. Welcome home. Is there a reason you're standing there gawking at me? She put her hands on her hips and got a disapproving pout on her face. The woman's humor was so cold it bordered on an insult. It had taken Enji some time to get used to it, but it still hit hard sometimes. He walked over and wrapped his wife in a monster bear hug and then kissed her on the forehead. I was just enjoying the view. I never thought a person cutting vegetables counted as a view. It does when it is the most beautiful woman in the world. I didn't realize you had met every woman in the world. Enji, Should I be jealous? Even if I had, they wouldn't hold a candle to you. After all, you're not just my beautiful wife and the mother of my children. You are my hero." She smiled at the big man. A small ice box appeared in between them. She stepped on it and was eyes level with her gorilla of a husband. She then laid a big wet kiss on his lips. After holding for a few moments, she released and stepped down. "Good answer, Enji Todoroki." "Where are the kids?" "Playing out back. My mother is watching them." "Good. I need to talk to you." "Okay, but first, how are Inko and Izuku?" "That is what I need to talk to you about." The man recounted his visit to the Midoriyas. Rei listened intently to every word, but she also could hear the worry in Enji's voice. She understood that. She also had been worried. That is why she sent Enji to check on them. Throughout the story, she also started to understand what her husband was wanting to do. She had been married to him long enough to know that. "You want to bring them here, don't you?" "Not permanently, just over the summer. Inko is a strong woman, but she will need help with Izuku." "You're right about that. The first few months after getting a quirk are the hardest. I still remember when the kids got theirs. Yeah, Tuya sneezed and set my sword collection on fire. Natsuo and Fumi freezing the laundry room and the attic respectively. And then Shoka making snowballs in her crib. All true. And Izuku's fire is just like Hisashi's. Without proper training, that could get dangerous. Rei remembered Hisashi telling her how he almost burned down his family home before he got control. If the boy's fire is stronger than Hisashi's, then that could put our family in danger too. Have you thought of that? I have. The west wing is separated from the rest of the house. It has also been fireproof and outfitted with the best suppression system money can buy. Rei nodded. We did have Toyu asleep there after he got his fire. The icy woman thought it over and then nodded. If it were anyone else, I would say no. Our family comes first. But Hisashi is family. We have to help. We owe him so much. We do, but we will have to tell the kids. Okay, let me go get them. She walked out of the room with a determined walk. A short while later, Rei returned with 3 small children. The first had Enji's azure eyes and Rei's hair color. He was short, but looked about 12, their oldest Tuya. The second was a short girl who 11 looked a lot like Rei, but did have red streaks in her long hair. The third was a tall boy of 8 years. This was Natsuo. Finally, there was a small girl for that followed. This was the youngest of the group, Shoka Todoroki. She had white hair like her mother, but was cut really short with a large streak of red hair down the left side. Her eyes were the same azure color as her father and older brother. Rei opened the door, and the kids all smiled at the sight of their father. The kids all rushed into the room and hugged the big man. "Kids, so glad to see you." The 4 lined up in front of the big man. "Tuya, what are these bandages?" The boy's right arm had a large white bandage wrapped around his forearm. This was not an uncommon occurrence, since Tuya could produce flames hotter than Enji's, but he had none of the man's heat resistance. He had inherited his mother's body that was resistant to cold temperatures. This caused his flames to burn and damage his body. Normally, this would have doomed any pro-hero aspiration. However, at a certain point, Tuya's hair went from the flaming red of his father to snowy white like it is now. Upon further training, Enji found the boy had also inherited his mother's quirk. He could create a field of cold around his body to protect him from the superheat of his flames. However, using 2 powers at once was not easy, but the boy was getting better. Enji could feel that the burn was not very serious. He should heal within a few days. The boy still had a lot of improvement before he could be a pro, but he knew at this rate he would qualify for UA in 3 years. The man was very proud of his oldest. The short boy rubbed the back of his head. "I was practicing keeping my ice field up while using my fire, but I lost control for a moment." "I see. Well, accidents will happen. Dual processing is hard to master, but keep at it." The man looked at the dressing and was impressed. "Did you do this dressing, son?" "No, that was for Yumi. She placed burn cream on it and wrapped it for me." The man turned to his oldest daughter and patted her on the head. "That is very good work for Yumi. Still looking after your brother." "Yes, Daddy, Tuya should really learn how to do it himself. I mean, if he wants to be a hero someday. If he doesn't, then I guess you will have to become a hero also to make sure he stays in one piece. He then turned to Natsuo. So how was school today? Really good. I got an A on my test. Good job. Work hard like that, and you can become anything you want. The smallest girl, Shoka, ran up to her father. Daddy, look at this. She placed her hands together and created a small ice sculpture of a cat. It was lopsided and the face could use some work. But still Enji was impressed. The girl had a gift with ice. What was even more impressive was there was no sign of icing over, like Rei, Fuyumi, and Natsuo got. She was going to be something as she got older. Very good, Shoka. Do you think I can be a hero like you one day, Daddy? I have no doubt you can. Just keep your training every day and you will see results. The girl smiled at that. Hey, Shoka, you and I can form a fire and ice agency. Tuya had a goofy look on his face as he said that. No, I have no interest in teaming up with a guy who hurts himself when using his power. Toyua looked heartbroken, but continued to razz his little sister. She remained cold as always. Enji put an end to the swabbling. All right, kids, I have something to tell you. Once again, Enji related to events of the day. That was the guy whose funeral we went to, right? The confusion in Tuya's voice was evident. Yes, son. Hisashi was a good friend to your mother and I. Shoka spoke with her usual icy tone. Then how come he never visited or stopped by? Stupid. It's because he was a global hero. Toyua reprimanded his youngest sibling with a fiery tone. Night, son. He saved people all over the world. Right, Dad? Correct, son. We haven't seen him much in a year since you were all born, but we did keep in touch. He paused to let that sink in. He then continued. His son has now gotten his quirk. It is a powerful firepower like his father. I am going to invite him and his mother to stay here for the summer. I plan to train him to control his firepower better, if that is all right with you all. Tuya spoke first. You are awesome, Dad, helping people even outside of hero work. I'm in. The boys stood on the table. Plus, it would be cool to have another fire user practice with. Shoka got an exacerbated look on her face. Get off the table. Tuya, we have to eat there later. I would like to go on the record as being against having another fire user who can't control his power in this house. However, it would be unheroic to not help someone in a time of need. I approve. Natsuo and Fuyumi both agreed too. Excellent. I am so lucky to have such wonderful, caring children. I will make the arrangements. Rei spoke up, and I will call Inko and see how she feels. Shoka sat in her seat at the table with an impassive look on her face. Inside, though she was stewing, she did not like the thought of another boy coming into the house. She already had to deal with her stupid brothers. Knowing her luck, he would be a loudmouth goofball like Tuya. This was not going to be a fun summer. The next day, Inko awoke in the hospital to the sound of a kind nurse's voice. She told the long-haired woman that she would be taking his numbers. The doctor would then be by to see him and check on his progress. Inko walked up to the boy's bed, and he was still unconscious. She then kissed him on the forehead. Izuku, this is your mom. I know you can hear me. Just know that I am proud of you, son. But I need you to come back to me as soon as possible. Be strong, son. She wiped tears from her eyes and went to the bathroom to clean up a little. Not much she could do about her clothes, though. She still had the same ones on as yesterday. Still, she held out hope that they would be going home soon. With that thought high as she crossed her mind, he would not be waiting at home for them. She shook herself out of that thought. She had to focus on Izuku right now. All her other feelings would need to wait. Just then, her cell phone rang. The caller ID said it was Rei Todoroki. She wondered what her friend wanted. She picked up a phone, and the two spoke for several minutes. Rei asked how Izuku was. Inko let her know that there had been no change. She did not expect him to wake up for another 4 days at least. Rei understood she had been friends with Hisashi. She knew his backstory. Inko, me and Enji would like you both to come and stay with us for the summer. That is a nice offer, Rei. But I couldn't put you out like that. You two have 4 kids to look after. They probably don't want 2 strangers coming into their world. We already discussed it with the kids. They're all on board. Thank you, Rei. But I can't accept it. I can raise my son myself. Inko, we aren't trying to say you can't. But take it from me. Fire quirks can be dangerous and unpredictable in a boy Izuku's age. Enji want to help him learn to control it, since Asashi can't. We owe your husband so much, me especially. Please, let us help you for his sake. Inko felt really bad now. She had forgotten that Rei and Enji were his schoolmates. They had known him long before she had. They thought of him as family. She had been so consumed by her own loss these past months. She had forgotten there were others just as close to her love. What must it have been like for them? Her voice cracked as she spoke. Tears streamed down her face. Okay, Rei, when do you expect us? I believe we will be ready by the weekend. Enji has spared no expense getting the West Wing ready for you too. Izuku should be up by then, and the doctors should be done with their screenings. We will be there. Sounds good. Rei, thank you. Don't mention it, old friend. Inko hung up the phone and said a silent prayer. She thanked Hisashi for still looking out for them. She promised that she would take care of his son. For days pasted. Inko figured Izuku would be awake tomorrow. She had changed by now. The Bakugos had stopped by to visit a few times. On one of their early visits, Mitsuki insisted on taking Inko home to get showered and changed. Katsuki and his father stayed behind to watch over Izuku. Could do nothing to help his friend. Finally, on the last hour, he marched up to the bedside, took a deep breath and screamed. Izuku, wake the fuck up. You'll also like, completed, Save from Ruin, Badass Deku / Dadzawa by Alexandrian Ace. Completed, Save from Ruin, Badass Deku / Da, 306k. 7.6k. Izuku Midoriya. May seem like your average happy boy with a quirk, who goes to school with a bright smile on his face. However, his home life is in pieces. Ever since U.A Academy Romance, Izuku Fanfic, by Dabi. U.A Academy Romance, Izuku Fanfic. 342k. 7.3k. Midoriya Izuku. The smartest student in U.A Academy and the top successor among the class, has no experience of being in a relationship or falling in love. Uraraka Ochak. Trust me. Katsuki Bakugo X Reader. Discontinued by WMP. Trust me. Katsuki Bakugo X Reader. Discani. 89.5k. 2.1k. As we all know, Katsuki Bakugo is known to have a hot temper, is cocky, and likes to destroy things. Y/N a kind, quiet, and cheerful girl. They both met when they were No Choice Villain. Deku by Magdalene Baxter. No Choice Villain. Deku. 43.3k. 2.6k. Izuku Midoriya just wanted to be a hero. Unfortunately for him, life was about to get much more complicated. To protect the people he loved the most, Izuku would have to BNHA siblings, The Anxious and the Exuberant by Fury Giovanni. BNHA siblings, The Anxious and the Exuberant. 24.6k. 681. My Hero Academia fanfiction following the anime series with my own twist and OC. Hiroko Midoriya is the daughter of Inko and Hisashi Midoriya, aka Izuku's sister. She, BNHA, Izuku Todoroki. What if Izuku is a Todoroki? By Lawrencey. BNHA, Izuku Todoroki. What if Izuku is a Todd? 854k. 24.2k. An unfortunate accident caused Izuku Todoroki to separate from his family. After his disappearance, the family only grew colder. Shoto lost his twin and was trained. R. By Dexon writes. 91.5k. 3k. X. Heavy checkmark. Y/N. 22. His father was horrified by his language. Son, not here. This is a hospital. Your friend needs his rest. No, he doesn't owe man. He needs to get up so I can beat him. Even if he does have a stupid, awesome quirk. He is not going to beat me. I will be the #1 hero. Even greater than All Might. Izuku's eyes flooded open. You really think my quirk is awesome, Kakin? Masaru fell back in his chair. He quickly got to his feet and called for the doctors. He then called his wife with the good news. Both ladies jumped for joy and rushed back to the hospital. Upon arriving, the nurses rushed her to Izuku's room. The Bakugo boys had been asked to wait in the lobby while the doctors finished their work. So Mitsuki stayed behind with them. Inko entered the room and saw her little boy awake and alert. It was true his eyes were now the same shade as Hisashi's. It brought tears to her eyes. Mommy, is everything all right? Of course, sweetheart. I am just so happy to see you. You look like you've seen a ghost. In a way, I did, sweetheart. With the change in your hair and eyes, you look just like your dad now. Really? Yes. Can I see? The tearful woman asked for a mirror. A nurse handed her one. The boy stared at his reflection for a long time. So you're not mad at me? Mad? Why would I be mad? I nearly burned the park down. The boy got a pouty look on his face. Yes, you did, sweetheart. You will have to be very careful from now on. The boy nodded in understanding. Izuku had a question he wanted to ask, but was afraid to. However, his curiosity won out. Mom, do you think I could be a hero with a power like this? Of course you can. I get the feeling you will be a hero greater than your daddy was. He said that too. What do you mean? The blue youth told his mother about the vision he had during the events in the park, about the touching words his father gave him, how they gave him the strength to put out the fire. Inko's eyes grew teary again. That sounds like your dad. I guess he is still with us after all. Izuku nodded with a smile. The doctor cleared his throat then. The emotional woman apologized and turned to the doctor. Good news is your son is very healthy. His power seems to have done no damage to his body. What about his hair and eyes? Yes, we were concerned about that. I see in his file that he used to have green hair and eyes. Yes, like mine. Now he has the same hair color as my late husband. I understand your worry. Such a drastic change could have been a sign of other changes internally. However, we found nothing harmful. The only change we could find is that your son's temperature is slightly elevated. However, that more than likely has to do with his power being fire-based. They tend to run a little hot. My husband was the same way. Inko remembered the warm feeling of being held by the man on cold winter days. She always found it so comforting. Well, that explains a lot. We will be keeping your son one more night to make sure he is all right. Tomorrow we will conduct the standard quirk screening to see what we are dealing with. Okay, doctor. Sounds good. The next morning the doctors conducted their final tests. They were very surprised by the findings. The doctor then had both mother and child brought to the standard exam room to deliver the news. Well, the wait is over. As expected, it is a fire-based power. He seems to be able to emit a large amount of heat and light at the same time. Strangely, he seems to be completely immune to fire and heat. There is also evidence that he can absorb fire too, though it is still unclear how much. We think that is how he extinguished the fire he created in the park. Sounds very similar to my husband's power, doctor, except for absorbing fire. As far I know, he cannot do that. Yes, that is what your husband's record showed us. Can you tell me what your power is, ma'am? She used her power to move a lollipop from the doctor's breast pocket and into her hands. I can move small objects toward me. It's useful enough, I guess. She handed the candy to her son. He unwrapped it and placed it in his mouth. That is quite common. Children will often inherit a stronger version of their parents' quirks or get a combination of the two. It seems your son falls into the first category. We have decided to call Inferno. Is Izuku going to be all right, doctor? When can we go home? The boy will be fine. His power has stabilized now, and he poses no threat to himself or others. However, I will be giving you the name and number of an outside quirk counselor. I recommend setting up an appointment with them soon. Of course, doctor, I will. Good. Well, come with me and sign some papers, and we will get you two on your way. Inko nodded and followed the doctor. She assured Izuku she would be right back. The dear woman filled out the paperwork, which seemed to take forever. The pair hopped in a cab and drove back to the Midoriya home. It was a normal two-story house down the street from the Bakugos. The building had large windows facing the rising sun. The inside downstairs consisted of the living room, kitchen, and a guest restroom. The upstairs was made up of the master bedroom and bathroom, Izuku's room, a guest bedroom, and a standard bathroom. Inko sat Izuku down and had a talk with him. She told him that his power was just like his dad's. This made the boy happy. But she told him it took his father many years to learn to control his power. He so looked forward to teaching him. But he couldn't now. But his Uncle Enji and Aunt Ray had offered to let them stay with them for the summer. Enji had even offered to train the boy. Izuku knew that Enji was a hero endeavor. He was one of the best heroes in the country, next to All Might. He could for certain help him learn to use this new power. His hands burst into fire at his excitement. Fortunately, he was quick to put it out before anything went up. Izuku agreed as long as it was all right with his mommy. The next evening, Inko called up the Bakugos and let them know everything. Mitsuki was being pestered by little Katsuki until she finally told him to get lost. The green-haired woman told her they would be staying with some friends for the next 2 months. They were going to help train Izuku in his new fire ability. Katsuki overheard this and screamed that Izuku had no right to train without him. If that was the case, then he would train 1,000,000 times harder. Inko laughed at the bombshell's angry outburst. Still, she was glad to see he was not traumatized from the event. He seemed back to normal, or as normal as a Bakugo got. Mitsuki told Inko to enjoy herself and to take good care of Izuku, also to make sure she kept her in the loop. The mother and son were on a train toward the Todoroki mansion. After getting off the train, they were met by a driver in a dark limo. He then drove them to the estate. The two were awestruck by its size. Their apartment looked like an outhouse compared to this. Rei and Enji met them at the front door. The 4 Todoroki children were also present. They all were a mixture of eager and nervous. Except for Shoka, she had no emotions on her face, but inside she was annoyed at this. Enji and Rei gave the Midoriyas a tour of the house. They then took them to the west wing. Enji pointed out that everything was lined with a high-grade fire retardant. He told Inko not to worry. It was safe and would not affect their health. He also told her the whole house is equipped with water and chemical fire extinguishers if they were needed. All of this made Inko feel better. Enji then turned to Izuku. Well, little man, are you ready to start training? Yes. Can we go now? The little boy was practically jumping for joy. This caused his hair to burst into flames. Several embers touched the mats on the floor and simply flipped out. Seeing this made Inko feel more confident. Sure, we can. The muscular man turned to Inko. Is that okay with you? Yes, by all means. Great. Tuya and Shoka should already be at it. Let's go. Enji slid open the door and exited the room. Izuku ran after him with a big smile on his face. Inko smiled at this. How many months had it been since she saw her little boy smile? Hisashi's death had been very hard on the boy. She did not know what to make of his vision of Hisashi. But knowing the man as she did, if there was a way to speak to Izuku from the dead, then he would find a way. That is the kind of man Hisashi was. She saw that same spirit in Izuku. She would see that he became as good a man and as good a hero as his father had been. She swore it. Meanwhile, in a building in a distant city, a group of showy figures met. So, it has been several months since King Sun's death. Have any heroes like him appeared? A man with a glowing scar answered the question. Not one. It is infuriating. I expected Night Sun to go down much harder. Hardly a bother. A feminine voice spoke up at this point. We are just lucky your need for ultra-violence didn't expose us. That could have compromised our long-term plans of the world. Our scared brother's actions were reckless, but effective. The Revengers were onto us. If they had continued their pursuit, then we would have also been exposed. Was there not a more effective way to deal with him? Quieter. What a stupid comment. You know how powerful KS was. That was the only way to deal with him. At least his death was not public. In addition, the Revengers were taken out too. So good job, brother. Thank you, brother. Now, on to different business. What do we think of this man calling himself All for One? Ah, the self-proclaimed Demon Lord. Do we think we should pull him in? He could be useful. No way, brother. That one can't be trusted. He dreams beyond his station. He may dream of being a ruler, but he is just a savage. For once I agree with him. However, I believe he can be useful. His machinations might make our goals easier to reach. But right now we should only observe. To do more would bring undue attention to us after the death of Night Sun. Agreed. No punishment will be given for the method of Night Sun's death. It served our purpose. What about the cleanup? An oily voice spoke now. It went well. Much new information was gleaned. Excellent. Let us watch the events as we always have, and always shall. 11 years passed in the blink of an eye. Izuku grew into a powerful young man. It was found through his training that he had been born with a combo quirk. He had gained his father's firepower, but had also gained a version of his mother's quirk. Izuku's variant of telekinesis allowed him to control his own body. This allowed him to fly without having to use his fire. This meant they had to change his quirk registration forms, and the name of his quirk went from Inferno to Fireflight. At this point, he could move freely and quickly, but was still no match for the movement speed of Endeavor. While Izuku is a fan of All Might, he is not his main inspiration. The boy spends most of his time watching the few clips of his father rather than the All Might rescue clip. He also developed his current fighting style from his father. The main moves are fireball attacks of varying size. He also has an area of effect attack. It unleashes a burst of fiery heat, knocking everyone off their feet. He also has incorporated other fire constructs into his style from watching other heroes. He still is a hero fanboy, but it is more about emulation than longing. In appearance, Izuku has blue hair and blue eyes. His body is very lean and fit as a result of training with endeavor and his own efforts. One downside is that he is still rather short at 5 feet 5 inches. His personality is far more outgoing and energetic because he did not have to deal with all the scorn from being powerless, though he is still very selfless to the point of being reckless, a fact that worries those close to him because of his powerful quirk. Inko never gains all the weight out of guilt. She is closer to her son and encourages him in his heroic pursuits. Izuku's training with Tuya and Shoka under Endeavor made him close with the family from that point on. He thought of the Todoroki siblings as his own, especially Tuya, often calling him Big Bro. As for Bakugo, in a normal timeline, he would have become arrogant because of his explosion quirk. That does not happen here. He is cocky and flies off the handle, but is not cruel. He and Izuku quickly became friends and rivals because of Izuku's powerful quirk. The two trained together often, and both grew stronger because of it. Bakugo developed his signature howitzer impact and explosive flight sooner because of influence from Izuku and his power. Also, he took to calling him Firefly because of his fire and flight powers and his small size. Now onward and upward. Izuku ran down the street on a bright sunny day. His muscular legs propelled him forward. He was on his way to school when he was stopped by a villain attack. A giant villain was being apprehended by heroes. What the villain had done or why he was attacking was unknown, but the crowd was annoyed at the delay. Izuku, meanwhile, was watching the action. He pulled his trusty notebook out to take notes. He said excitedly at the sight of the hero, "That is Kamui Woods. He's new, but is making a big name for himself." He then went into a rant on how awesome his power was. He then noted how he could apply his moves to his own power. He wondered aloud if he could use his power to make flaming ropes to bind villains with. "Wow, kid, you're a real fanboy." An old man with star growths on his head said with a smirk, "Let me guess you want to be a hero too." "I not only want to be a hero, I will be the best," Izuku said with a smile. Eventually, Izuku arrived at school, the day when his all-school days do. Then came the last period of the day. A white-haired teacher stood in front of the class with a stack of papers in his hand. "I should hand out this career aptitude test, so you can pick your profession." The man then threw the papers into the air. "But what's the point? I know you all want to go on the hero track." The whole class proceeded to show off their quirks. Yes, you have some impressive quirks, but no power usage at school. Don't lump me in with these losers, teach. Bakugo sat in the front of the room. He was leaning back in his chair with his feet on the desk. "I'm going to be the #1 hero, but these losers will be lucky to be a sidekick to some busted D-lister." The class grew angry at Bakugo. They yelled and screamed at him for his comments, but made no move toward him. "Take a chill pill, Kanchan. Keep talking like that, and you're more likely to become a villain than a hero." The class turned and saw that Izuku Midoriya had spoken. The blue-haired teen smiled confidently at his rival. In this timeline, Izuku is actually pretty popular because of his powerful quirk. However, he is not involved in many school activities because he is always training. The teacher spoke up as the rivals glared at each other. "Midoriya and Bakugo, I see you two applied to take the UA entrance exam." The class was stunned into silence. Several made the comment that UA only had a 1% acceptance rate. There was no way they would get in. "Shut extras. Firefly and I will get in. That way you will have the joy of watching me become a greater and richer hero than All Might. More like you will watch me become the #1 hero, Kanchan." The period ended. Izuku was organizing his notes from the battle earlier. Suddenly, Bakugo walked over and knocked on his desk. "Hey, Firefly, me and the guys are going to the arcade. Want to tag along?" "Can't today. I have to meet her." "Oh, great. I don't know what you see in that girl." Bakugo and Izuku's friend with the stretchy fingers came over, followed by another boy. "Midoriya, is that the girl I've seen you with around the neighborhood?" "Yes." The slimy boy got a wide smirk on his face. Man, she is fine. What is a girl like that? The boy made rounding gestures over his chest as he spoke. Doing with a guy like you. Izuku had heard this kind of talk before. It didn't bother him. You would have to ask her, man, there is no way I could talk to a girl as hot as that. Bakugo smirked at this. That is probably why she is his girlfriend, and not yours, idiot. Girlfriend. Midoriya, you're going out with that hottie? How, man? Just how? Izuku stood up from his desk and placed his notebook in his bag and zipped it shut. That, my friend, is a great question. One which I do not have a clear answer for. Izuku took a quick step and was standing in front of the long-fingered teen with his index finger an inch from his face. A blue fireball was in the space between Izuku's finger and the boy's flesh. However, I would suggest you watch your word choice and gestures when talking about a guy's girl in front of him. The boy got a freaked look on his face. He placed his hands up in surrender position. Okay, Midoriya. I'm sorry, man. I didn't mean anything by it. Izuku extinguished his finger. Good to know. Don't let it happen again. Or else. His tone was flat as he spoke the last two words, but his eyes made the point. You two go ahead. Bakugo ordered his extras. The two left dejectedly, but did as the spiky blonde commanded. Izuku looked at his friend in disappointment. Sorry about that, man. Those guys are idiots. I didn't tell them to say that stuff. I will have a word with them later. I know, man. And thanks. Izuku extended his fist and Bakugo's fist bumped him back. All right. See you later. And tell the Ice Queen hello for me. Izuku looked at the time and knew he needed to hurry. His Ice Queen did not like being kept waiting. Meanwhile, a slimy criminal had robbed a nearby store and was fleeing with the money. However, it would not be so easy to get away. In the crowd was an annoyed athletic man. He suddenly buffed up to an imposing 7-foot Hulk. Have no fear, citizens. I am here. Izuku ran to a nearby alley, the location he was to meet his girlfriend. He had changed before leaving school. He was wearing a white button-down shirt, black pants, and a pair of dress shoes. His girl would not have him taking her out in a school uniform. As he got close, he could see her back. She was a tall girl, standing 5 feet 10 inches, almost 5 feet 11 inches. Her snow-white hair was cut short. He couldn't see it from this angle, but he knew there was a large streak of red hair down the right side of her face in the front. She was dressed formally today. A simple sleeveless gray dress and black shoes. But even then, she looked classy. Shoka. The girl turned at her name. This revealed that she did indeed have a sizable chest and a streak of red hair on the right side. It was tucked neatly behind her right ear. Her muscular build and wide shoulders give her the look of an Amazon. However, her azure blue eyes and hair color meant she would not win a Wonder Woman look-alike contest. He came to a stop in front of the tall girl, and the height difference was striking. She was almost a whole head taller than him. But Izuku didn't care. He just loved being with her. Aizu, you're late. Her face was as impassive as a glacier. Was she angry, sad, jealous? No normal person could know. Izuku did know. She was upset, only by a few seconds. Second or not, late is late. Her words were cold and ice-like. However, inside, she was giggling at the sight of her blue-haired boyfriend. She thought to herself, my God, why does he have to be so cute? No. Be strong, Shoka. You're mad at him. What's the deal, Shoka? The boy knew something was up. Care to explain why you turned down my dad's and brother's offer to put in a recommendation for you with UA? The girl's eyes glowed with an icy light. Izuku rubbed the back of his head. Shoka could give the coldest of death stares. He figured she got it from her mother. He had gotten that same look from Ray Todoroki when he was younger. So, you know about that? How did you hear? I was at my dad's agency when you met with him and Tuya. I was outside the door when you turned them down. Oh, I guess that makes sense. So, were you just not going to tell me? Her voice was rising in volume as she spoke. The tall girl's face was blank of expression. However, her cold eyes glared daggers at Izuku, a sure sign she was royally irritated, though the yelling meant she was not truly angry. If she was, her eyes would be glow like a pair of headlights, and she would be quiet, so that worked in his favor. I was just not right now. She was about to ream him out when he gestured for her to wait. Look, I'm sorry for not telling you, but I knew what you'd say. I would have said you're being an idiot. Yeah, that. Look, me and Bakugo talked it over. Bakugo, you're taking career advice from that foul-mouthed delinquent. Okay, foul-mouthed is fair, but he's not a delinquent. Look, we both agreed we wanted to make it into UA on our own merits. Oh, so you're saying I couldn't get in without my daddy? That I'm just some Nepa baby? This was not going very well. At this point, he remembered that both his mom and Bakugo had told him to be honest with Shoka. Well, he was paying the price for not doing that. Not at all. No one would stand a chance against you. They would be frozen before they knew what happened. But things are different for you. How is that? Your dad is the number 2 hero in the country, your brother number 8. If they didn't put in recommendations for you, then it would look like they didn't care about you. But me and Bakugo are not their family. If we did that, then we would walk into school with targets on our back. This made sense, but Shoka knew her boyfriend better. She could tell from his tone he was trying to cover up the real reason. Nice story. Now what is the real reason? Or have you abandoned your dream of going to UA and becoming the number 1 hero? The girl was good. Izuku figured he should just tell her the reason, even though he knew she wouldn't understand. As his girlfriend, she deserved the truth, even if she didn't support it. Look, you're right. That isn't the reason. Shoka nodded in an indigent way, as if to say, tell me something I don't know. Her eyes were laser focused on the boy, just looking for him to try and lie. Izuku took a deep breath and leaned against the alley wall as he hung his head low. The truth is it didn't feel right to take Uncle Enji's or Big Bro Tuya's recommendations. If someone was going to give me a recommendation, it should have been my dad. Shoka's icy stare melted a little. She walked over and placed her hand gently on Izuku's shoulder. She knew how hard losing his dad had been. Most days he was fine, but at big moments like this it hit him hard. I am sorry about your father, Izu, but I believe he would tell you to take the recommendations if he were here. He would want you to pursue your dream, just like I do. Izuku lifted his head and wiped tears away from his eyes. I know, but the thing is, my dad got in without one. I want to prove I am just as good as him. If I don't, then how can I become a greater hero than him? Shoka shook her head in exasperation. She knew there was no convincing him now. He had made up his mind. She was not surprised. One time when they were 7, she had stayed over at Izuku's house for a sleepover. She had gotten up to go to the bathroom. As she passed the office, she heard a noise. She carefully peeked into the room. It was Izuku watching an old internet clip. Shoka recognized it as a clip of Night Sun taking down a group of villains and saving a town from attack. It had been played by the media all over the world at the time. It was one of the few clips that showed the man in action. After it played through, Izuku watched it again. She knew he was constantly comparing himself to his dad. Hard not to with nearly the same power set. The intelligent girl didn't like this. She knew it would hurt Izuku's chances of getting into UA, which was already hard enough. However, she figured this had more to do with being close to his dad. While she didn't like it, she couldn't take that away from him. Fine. Does that mean our date is canceled? Absolutely not. You're coming on this date, whether you like it or not. Izuku grabbed her by the waist and pulled her toward him. How could any guy not enjoy a date with the most amazing girl in the world? Shoka felt a wave of girliness come over her. How did he know to say that? Is it written on her forehead? She took a deep breath and centered herself. I'm pretty amazing. However, there will not be any more dates for the next 10 months. 10 months? Izuku's jaw literally hit the ground. That is your punishment for lying to me. Really? I don't agree with you at all. But if you had just told me the truth, then a punishment wouldn't be necessary. But you lied. 10 months. That is how long you have to prepare for the entrance exam. I would just be a distraction to that. Plus, you are an amazing distraction. Shoka wanted to melt at that, but steeled herself. Anyway, you will call me every 2 days and give me an update. And make sure you study and sleep also, not just train. Yes, ma'am. Shoka nodded at this. It would be hard for her being apart from him that long, but it was for the best. After all, she had her own preparations to make. And Izuku could be just as much a distraction as she could. Don't worry, Shoka. I will get in. I promise. You'd better. Or else. Izuku knew by the look in her eye that when she said or else, it didn't mean anything good. His girlfriend could be really scary when she wanted to be. He just nodded. It felt like the best thing to do. Good. Now where are you taking me? It's a little family restaurant that has some of the best soba in town. A good start. And for dessert, they also have incredible cheesecake. Good. If the soba is good enough, you might just earn a good night kiss. Challenge accepted. Izuku extended his hand to the young lady. She nodded and extended her arm. He wrapped his arm through hers, and he led her toward the restaurant. The two teens walked arm in arm together toward the restaurant. They did get some looks from passers-by. They were an odd couple. Many people took Shoka as being older than her 14 years because of her height and body type. Coupled with Izuku being 5 inches shorter than her, they drew looks. It was unavoidable. Shoka didn't care. These people only saw Izuku from the outside. They didn't know what an amazing person he was. The fact that he was one of the first people outside her family to tell her she was pretty, or that he made her feel like the most beautiful person in the world when she felt like a tall, ugly freak, or that he was so dedicated to being a hero that he would forego sleep just to train his power more. Honestly, that one was more of an annoyance than a virtue, but still. To her, Izuku was the greatest boy ever made, and that was coming from someone who didn't think much of the gender. Just then the couple's path was blocked by 3 older boys. All of them were very large and muscular. Hey there, beautiful. What does a classy girl like you do with a short fry like this? Why don't you come have fun with some real men? Izuku moved between Shoka and the boys out of instinct. He is so brave, she thought. The lady is with me, guys. Get lost, shorty. She's too much woman for you. Oh, really? Izuku rolled up his right sleeve. A shock of worry surged through Shoka. Not for Izuku, he would be just fine, but she worried that he was going to use his power. That was against the law. Shoka, can I get a piece of blue ice? That better be something to treat the serious case of whoop as we are about to give you. Shoka understood what he was doing. Very clever. She held out her hand, and ice formed in it. The color was perfectly clear, not even a single bubble, and as blue as the midday sky. She shaped it into a tube about 2 inches in diameter and about 7 inches long. Not so much, she said in a cold and measured voice. Blue ice is the hardest naturally forming variant of ice in the world. In most cases, it is sturdier than concrete. She held up the blue ice before her. This version is much stronger than normal because I made it with my quirk. It has a strength equal to steel. The tall girl placed it in her man's hand. He held it out for the whole street to see. Izuku gripped the ice in his hand and flexed mildly. The muscles of his exposed forearm flexed, showing all his sinew and muscle mass. After a second, the ice started to fracture. Within a minute, it broke, the pieces falling to the ground with a clunk. That's just a trick. No way you're that strong. Izuku cracked his knuckles. Maybe, but do any of you, men, want to put to the test? The 2 men looked into the adamant boy's eyes. They saw no fear. They also saw a bright light that illuminated his orbs, giving him a demonic look. The 3 decided there were easier girls to get. They turned around and walked quickly in the opposite direction. The crowd of onlookers stared at the boy for a moment. He then threw them a side glare, and they all put their heads down and walked on. That was very clever. You never planned to use your quirk, did you? Izuku rolled his sleeve back down. That's against the law. Plus, it wouldn't do for you to look so nice and for me to have burned off sleeves while we were eating. That would be very inappropriate. Still, it would make the evening more enjoyable to see your arms in front of me. You think so? I wouldn't say it if it weren't true. Now shall we continue? Shoka extended her arm for Izuku to take it. Suddenly, a large explosion went off nearby. Shoka turned to see the smoke rising. She wondered what it could be. A villain attack. Probably. We need to get over there. Izuku's voice was harsh and determined. The calm girl turned to her boyfriend and saw the look of dread on his face. Izuku, what's wrong? That explosion. It belongs to Kanchan. He took hold of Shoka's hand and pulled her after him. She struggled for a moment, but with her long legs, she caught up quickly. She was grateful she wore flats today. How can you know that it belonged to Bakugo? It might be some random explosion. It was the sound and color. Kanchan's explosions have loud sizzle after they go off, and the color is always a bright orange. She wanted to ask why they were running toward the explosion, but she didn't. Izuku was a born hero. He would always run toward the danger. That meant she would follow to keep him from doing something stupid. After a few moments, the 2 came to a scene of devastation. Many pro heroes were already on the scene. Most were keeping the crowd back and rescuing people from nearby buildings that had caught fire. Both teens worked their way closer. As the 2 got to front of the line, they saw what they feared the most. A villain with a liquid body was holding a boy in his grasp. The kid was shouting obscenities at the top of his lungs. Unfortunately, Izuku was right. It was Bakugo. The two would know that spiky blonde hair and raspy voice anywhere. We need to do something. If this keeps up, Kanchan is in serious danger. He might die. You're not wrong. The way that villain is holding him, it looks like he's blocking him from breathing. We can save him. Don't forget, we're not allowed to use our powers without hero licenses. Izuku knew she was right, but he couldn't just stand there and do nothing. Shoka continued. Besides, your power would not be able to take down the villain. It would probably make the fires worse. Okay, point taken. But we have to do something. I will save Bakugo. My quirk should allow me to get him free of the villain. And then you can fly us clear. Good idea, but the villain is not just going to let you freeze him. I know. You will act as a distraction. Jump out there and absorb the fire. That should create enough of a scene for me to get in. You're awesome. Don't you ever forget it. The girl smiled at that. This made Izuku smile too. The two broke through the line established by the heroes. They ran into the alley as the girl screamed through the sky. Unbeknownst to them, a skinny man stood back of the crowd. He wanted to do something, but he couldn't. I can help. Let me. The man turned toward the police. He belonged to a young blonde with glasses. Plus, the man laughed. Okay, but listen close to me. The man laid out the line. Meanwhile, Izuku ran into the middle of the scene. In full view of the village, Shoka moved around the side out of view. What have we here? Another juicy young body for me to take over. Sorry, kid, but I'm not done with this work yet. Izuku activated the power. His blue eyes glowed bright. He then started to remove all the fire from surrounding the village. The heat light and embers formed lines of energy that streaked through the air toward the team. Fire gathered around the fire.
See you on the other side!
Disappeared into the state. All the fires were on fire. The heroes and armor bearers were amazed at the sight. The villain was impressed and wondered if he got the wrong news out. At that moment,
follow that car!
Instantly,
Past
she then
me!
delivered 5 powerful strikes of sludge green ice at Bakugo. The boy gasped for air as he got loose. Izuku out. The blue team came over. The two grabbed the block and hauled him toward the alley entrance. Unfortunately, the villain recovered from shock and leapt to attack the three. Izuku made ready to grab his friends and plasma. He wrapped an arm around each one and took the air. All of a sudden, a powerful gust exploded in the alley. The sudden gale sent Izuku three flying out of the alley. They landed
there might be a little bit of
ground.
traffic ahead.
Both Bakugo
Watch out for
and
that.
Shoka got covered. Suddenly it started to rain. It took the three a moment to entangle themselves and get to the floor. The hero came up. They were then guided to a nearby ambulance and backed out. As the rain cleared a large figure emerged from the alley. It was Almighty. He stood there in classic
Making new friends, eh?
giant
You go
smile
enjoy
was
yourself.
everywhere.
I have to go make another
Have no
delivery.
fear, sister, because I am here. The crowd cheered the sight of number one. Everyone exclaimed how awesome it was that he could change the weather with one punch. A short while
Drop
later,
zone approaching.
All Might was still
Lovely
dealing
day
with
for a
media.
drive.
They just ate up any shot. The police had gathered up the sludge and placed him in a containment pod. He was now being placed in a truck and taken to prison. The teams had been checked out and were told they were fine. The heroes and cops were about to chew out Izuku and Shoka for using their quirk without a
I'll
license.
track the storm.
She played it.
Sigue adelante.
The
Keep
name
going.
drop of the number 2 hero got their attention. She also told them that Izuku had been specially trained by Endeavor and was applying to UN. The officer was a hero, and their soul The young man eyes on the soul and told him how powerful his power was. Many of them often had psychic after graduating from school. Most would
Okay.
be flattered by it.
There's no other way
Not
around.
spiky.
You've got to go through it.
Pissed him off. All these people knew he hadn't done anything to work. He had gotten captured by some damn expert. His friend and the Ice Queen. He had been helpless, even with all the training he had. Never again.
Woo!
I
For
would
the
be
eye of
number
the
one,
storm.
no matter what. In the meantime, the Sun Root knew there was one thing he had to do. He hated that he had to do it more than getting captured by a damn villain. He walked up to Shoka. I didn't need your help back there. Ice Queen, I was fine on my own. Shoko looked flatly loudly. Really?
Okay, on my mark. 5,
Shut it.
4.
Let me finish. This is hard.
4 now,
Without
that's
your
fine.
icy commentary. He took a raspy breath to speak.
This could get a
Thank
little rough.
Shoko was shocked, even though her face was shocked. Gratitude from Bakugo. She thought she would never see the day. Still, he needed to work on his delivery. But she was not going to talk. She wanted to add that she thought
Not
he was
even a
lucky.
scratch.
But
The
Izuku thought
jungle
highly of
awaits.
letting someone die in a However, she decided not to add that.
Flamingos!
Teary-eyed Firefly, I swear I will never be helpless like that again. You got that? Izuku smiled at her. Yeah, I got it. He extended his fist to palm. He returned the gesture with a smile. Bakugo then said goodbye to the two, and well, that was sweet. Shoko ran her hands over the dress, trying to remove the dirt. It had little effect. The girl took out her phone and started typing. Izuku got a quizzical look on his face. Shoko, what are you doing? Your place is close by. I am messaging Annie Inko to let her know I am coming over to change. Izuku looked down at himself, nodded in understanding. Yeah, I'm a sight. You misunderstand. Izuku, I'm gonna get clean. I'm gonna go to the restaurant. She hit a few more keys on her phone before putting it away. Izuku's phone message. He pulled up the message. Looked like she also asked his mom. The answer was yes. Then the situation was
I'll swing back round and guide you through the bridge.
You promised me great. So, you wouldn't want to disappoint me, would you? No. I look like a little what am I supposed to say when they see me? Shoka gave a rare smile. After all, you guys were good. You went after one. That was not
¡Qué maravilla!
after the
You're not gonna believe your eyes when you see this.
He
Keep
knew no matter
going.
what he said, he was going to arrest me. So he went, why did his girlfriend have to be so cold? Plus, nearby, a young girl had left the scene to laugh. She had watched two kids her age run in to save their friend. They were incredible to her. She hoped she could do something for the pair at some point. She looked at her phone. Yikes! Time had gotten away from her. She had just enough time to get dinner. To be home before curfew. She ran.
This is the final drop.